You wake up, and before your feet even have the chance to touch the cold floor of your bedroom,
Right.
before you've even stretched your arms or fully opened your eyes, your mind is just, well, it's already off to the races.
Oh, absolutely. It's instantaneous.
Yeah, you're mentally scrolling through this vast catalog of your problems. Like, there's that stressful meeting looming on the horizon.
Hmm.
There's the strained relationship that left a heavy, unresolved weight in your chest the night
Yeah,
before.
the stuff you didn't figure out yesterday.
Exactly. Or
Hmm.
there's that lingering physical ache in your lower back that flared up again just as you shifted under the covers.
Right, the body chiming in.
And you haven't even officially started your day. You haven't even poured a single cup of coffee, yet your body already feels profoundly exhausted.
It's a very real exhaustion, too.
It really is. It's this heaviness that pulls you down into the mattress. Like, it feels less like waking up to a new morning and more like being dragged backward into the unfinished business of yesterday.
It's a universal gravity, honestly.
Wow.
I mean, what you're describing is the absolute definition of waking up into the familiar past.
The familiar past. That's a great way to put it.
Yeah, it's this biological and psychological phenomenon where the overwhelming majority of people start their news cycle by immediately anchoring their consciousness to yesterday's pain.
Wow. So we literally boot up our biological computer by downloading the old software of our previous struggles.
Exactly. We download the old software, and we do this within a mere fragment of a second after regaining consciousness. It's automatic.
Well, welcome to our exploration today. We are taking a vast stack of research, clinical observations, and physiological studies to really look at this exact phenomenon.
Yeah, there is so much incredible data on this now.
There is, and we're on a mission to map out the invisible architecture of thought and emotion.
Because the core assertion we're examining today is, well, it's astonishing.
It is. And frankly, it's a little difficult to swallow at first glance.
Right, because it challenges everything.
Yeah, the idea that this invisible architecture of our internal state literally dictates our physical reality.
It literally dictates it, not metaphorically.
Exactly. So we're going to explore exactly how to break the habit of the old self and become the architect of a newly designed existence.
Utilizing nothing but the power of directed consciousness.
Right. And we want to understand the how and the why behind this, not just, the surface level concepts.
You have to get into the mechanics.
We do. Because if we're trapped in an endless loop of yesterday, constantly reacting to life rather than actually creating it, we need to know the biological mechanics of the trap in order to build an exit.
And the mechanics of that trap are absolutely fascinating.
I mean, they really are.
Because to understand them, we have to fundamentally redefine how we view our own biology.
Okay, so how do we normally view it?
Well, we tend to think of the body as a static physical object moving through time. A solid piece of matter that occasionally gets sick, occasionally feels good, and just slowly ages.
Right, like a car that just slowly breaks down over the passage of eras.
Exactly like that. But we need to shift that perspective entirely. The physical body is not static.
What is it then?
It is a highly fluid, responsive environment. I mean, think of it this way. Thoughts are the vocabulary of the mind, and feelings are the vocabulary of the body.
Thoughts are the vocabulary of the mind, and feelings are the vocabulary of the body.
I like that. Yeah, they aren't just fleeting, ethereal concepts floating in the ether. They are literal chemical commands. Every single thought you have produces a corresponding chemical cascade in your physical form.
Okay, let me stop you right there because I want to make sure we're grounding this in reality for everyone listening.
Sure.
When you say a thought is a chemical command, what is actually happening in the brain? Walk me through the physiological process of having a single thought.
Okay, so imagine the brain as a vast constellation of neurons.
A vast constellation.
When you have a thought, an electrical charge fires across a specific pathway of those neurons.
Like a lightning strike.
Yeah, an electrical spark. And that spark travels to a part of the brain called the hypothalamus.
The hypothalamus.
Right, which acts like a chemical manufacturing plant. Depending on the nature of the thought, the hypothalamus formulates a specific chemical messenger, a peptide.
Okay, so it brews a custom potion based on the thought.
Exactly. If you have a joyful thought, your brain manufactures a specific chemical elixir that travels through your bloodstream, docks onto the exterior of your cells, and makes you physically feel the sensation of joy.
Wow. So my cells are basically waiting for instructions from my brain?
Yes, constantly.
And those instructions arrive as physical chemicals.
Precisely. The cell receives the chemical, and it alters its state to match the thought.
That's incredible.
But the reverse is also true. This is where we get into trouble.
Oh, right. Because not all thoughts are joyful.
Exactly. If you have a judgmental, angry, or fearful thought, your hypothalamus brews a completely different, highly toxic chemical cocktail.
It floods the body.
It floods the body, and suddenly you feel polarized, tense, and anxious. The thought creates the chemical, and the chemical creates the physical feeling.
Which brings us back to that morning routine we were talking about.
Yes, the waking up.
Right, when you wake up and immediately start thinking about the argument you had yesterday,
Uh-huh.
your brain is actively manufacturing the exact chemistry of anger or sadness and dumping it right into your pristine, newly rested body.
You're poisoning the well first thing in the morning.
Yeah.
And that leads us to the mechanics of trauma and memory.
Right, how memory plays into all this.
Yeah, because when an intensely charged emotional event occurs in your life, say a betrayal, a shock, a sudden physical threat, or a profound loss, the brain is radically altered.
How so?
Well, the quotient of change between how you normally feel in a balanced equilibrium and this sudden massive alarm state causes the brain to basically freeze a frame.
It takes a snapshot.
Exactly. A high-definition, multi-sensory snapshot of the external environment. What you were seeing, what you were hearing, who was there, what the temperature was.
And that snapshot becomes a long-term memory.
It becomes hardwired.
It sounds like the brain is essentially branding itself with this intense imagery because its primary goal is survival.
That is the exact evolutionary mechanism. It's a brilliant design for surviving a hostile natural world.
Right. It thinks, I need to permanently record this exact scenario so I can predict it and survive it if it ever happens again.
Right. If you encounter a predator near a specific river bend, the intense fear brands that location into your neural architecture.
So you never go back to that river bend.
You never go to that river bend again, and you survive.
Makes sense.
But here is the critical vulnerability in that system, and this is where human beings get absolutely trapped.
Okay, what's the vulnerability?
The physical form is so objective, so literal, that it absolutely cannot distinguish between the actual physical external threat and the fabricated internal thought.
Wait, I really want to challenge that.
Right.
You're saying that if I am sitting in a perfectly safe, quiet room, but I am vividly remembering a terrifying car accident I was in.
Yeah. My body literally believes I am in the car accident right now, like in this exact moment.
Absolutely. 100%. When you recall that painful memory, you fire the exact same neural pathways that fired during the actual event.
Wow.
And because those pathways are connected to the chemical factory in the hypothalamus,
You produce the exact same chemistry.
the exact same chemistry in your brain and body as if the event were happening right now in this very moment.
So the body is reliving the trauma.
Your heart rate elevates, your breathing becomes shallow, your muscles tense. To your physical body, the trauma is not in the distant past.
It's happening right now.
It is happening in the present moment on a continuous loop, triggered solely by your attention.
I've always thought about this with a specific analogy.
Oh, let's hear it.
Okay, so imagine you have a phenomenal, high-tech home security system installed in your house.
It is perfectly designed to protect you from burglars. But instead of letting it do its job and quietly monitor the perimeter, you wake up every morning, walk over to the control panel, and manually trigger the alarm yourself from the inside.
Oh, that's good.
Right. You punch the panic button, the sirens start blaring at deafening volumes, the strobe lights are flashing, and you are terrifying yourself and everyone in the house.
Just to check if the siren still works.
Exactly. If we know it hurts us to hear that deafening alarm, why do we become addicted to our own suffering? Why do we keep pressing the panic button?
That analogy perfectly captures the biological reality of what we do to ourselves daily. To fully understand why we keep pressing the button, we have to look deeper into the survival mechanism itself.
The fight or flight response.
Specifically, the sympathetic nervous system. In the natural world, mobilizing a massive surge of energy to run, fight, or hide from a predator is a highly adaptive response.
It keeps you alive.
When that system activates, it is a brilliantly orchestrated emergency protocol. The body immediately redirects all vital life force away from the internal organs.
Wait, away from the organs?
Yeah, digestion shuts down completely. The immune system is temporarily paused.
Because if you're running from a tiger, your body doesn't care about digesting your breakfast or fighting off a mild cold.
Exactly. It only cares about sprinting. Blood flow is pushed away from the rational, creative centers of the brain and shoved into the hindbrain and the extremities.
Arms and legs.
Right. So you can physically survive the moment. It is designed for short bursts of extreme danger.
Right, the threat appears, you run, you survive.
And within a short passage of time, the system returns to a balanced equilibrium. But the tiger isn't chasing us anymore.
No, in our modern reality, the predator is a traffic jam.
Or an unread email from a boss.
It's a thought about an ex-partner, a mortgage payment, or, a steady stream of chaotic global news delivered to a screen in our pockets.
And because our bodies can't tell the difference between the thought of the mortgage payment and the physical tiger,
We are triggering that massive emergency protocol constantly.
we are hitting the panic button all day long. And that is where the magnificent survival system turns completely against us.
It starts destroying us from the inside.
When this sympathetic nervous system is chronically activated by thoughts alone, it draws a vast, endless tide of vital life force away from the inner world.
Think about the biological cost of this.
It's staggering. If your body believes it is constantly fleeing a predator, there is no energy left for cellular repair.
None at all.
There is no energy left for maintaining the integrity of your organs. There is certainly no energy left for creative thought, for learning new things, or for designing a new future.
You're basically bankrupting your internal energy reserves to fight a phantom threat that only exists in your mind.
You are. So if we live in this state of constant emergency day after day, what does this actually do to our personality and our physical structure over time?
Yeah, what happens?
It creates a literal chemical addiction.
An addiction, like to drugs.
Very similar. The body becomes habituated to this massive rush of stress hormones, the adrenaline, the cortisol.
So we get used to the panic.
We begin to crave the familiar rush. We actually get a jolt of arousal from our own anger, our own fear, our own indignation.
Wow, so if the body goes too long without feeling stressed.
It sends a signal to the brain saying, we're out of balance, send more stress chemicals.
So you subconsciously start an argument.
Or you compulsively check the news to find something to be outraged about.
Just to get the chemical hit.
Exactly. Over the passage of seasons and eras of our lives, this profoundly unbalanced state becomes the new normal.
It's just who we think we are.
The overwhelming majority of who we are by the time we reach midlife becomes a set of memorized subconscious behaviors and emotional reactions.
We're no longer conscious creators of our destiny.
Not at all. We are biological playback machines, reliving the emotional chemistry of the distant past. The body literally becomes the mind.
That is a terrifying, yet completely logical explanation for why change is so hard.
It really is.
We are walking around chemically chained to our pasts, battling an addiction to our own stress.
Right.
But this raises a monumental question.
What's that?
If the body can be chemically tethered to the past by thought alone, if our biology is so malleable that it conforms to a phantom memory, is it possible to take that exact same biological machinery and point it in the opposite direction?
Now that is the ultimate question.
Can we become chemically tethered to a future that hasn't even happened yet?
The short answer is an emphatic, scientifically observable yes.
Okay, how?
The mechanism by which we achieve this is called mental rehearsal.
Mental rehearsing.
The underlying principle is this: when you are truly present, entirely focused, and you mentally rehearse an action, the brain alters its physical circuitry to look exactly as though the event has already occurred.
Because the brain does not know the difference between the physical experience and the vivid mental simulation.
Exactly. It begins to install the neurological hardware to match the thought.
I really want to emphasize the magnitude of this because I think a lot of listeners will hear mental rehearsal and immediately equate it to, like, simple positive thinking.
Or staring at a vision board and wishing for things.
Right, exactly. But we are talking about fundamentally altering the physical structure of the body, aren't we?
We are talking about observable, measurable changes in physical matter driven entirely by consciousness.
That's wild. Do we have examples?
Oh, there are remarkable studies illustrating this. For instance, individuals were instructed to simply imagine the intense physical act of lifting heavy weights.
Just imagine it.
They were told to focus on the contraction of the muscle, the strain, the entire sensory experience of the workout over a brief span of days.
And they never actually touched a piece of iron.
They did not lift a single weight.
Wait, really?
Really. Yet, at the end of the observation period, their physical form had grown noticeably stronger.
Just from thinking about it.
Their muscle mass and tone had increased simply through the act of sustained, focused imagination.
That is unbelievable.
The brain sent the exact same signaling to the muscles as if they were performing the physical work.
That stretches the boundaries of what we consider biological reality.
It shatters them.
If you can build muscle without physical resistance, what happens in the brain itself during this process?
We see the exact same structural changes in the neurological tissue.
Like actual new pathways?
Yes, individuals who simply imagine playing complex musical chords on an instrument, focusing intensely on the movement of their fingers and the sound of the notes,
Right.
they develop complex new neural thickets in their brains.
Neural thickets.
If you compare a brain scan of someone who physically practiced the instrument with someone who only mentally rehearsed it, the neurological hardware looks nearly identical.
So the act of pure focused attention begins to lay down the physical tracks of a new reality.
Yes, it paves the way.
Okay, I have to step in and push back here, because this is the exact point where I, and I'm sure many people listening, hit a massive wall of frustration.
I know exactly where you're going with this.
Let's say I understand the science. I believe the brain plasticity.
Okay.
So I sit down on my couch, I close my eyes, and I vividly imagine wealth.
Mm-hmm.
I picture a thriving business. I imagine perfect health. I imagine a beautiful, loving relationship. I am rehearsing the future.
You're doing the mental work.
Right. But while I'm picturing this beautiful future, my reality is that I am broke, I am lonely, and I am stressed.
The external environment.
So as I'm imagining the wealth, I am sitting there physically grinding my teeth in frustration. I feel the desperate, agonizing lack of the very things I am picturing.
Ah, yes.
In that scenario, nothing is going to happen, right? I'm not going to suddenly grow the neural pathways of a millionaire.
You have just highlighted the absolute critical missing link in human transformation.
Because the thought isn't enough, is it?
The thought alone is not enough. The thought is the electrical signal you send out.
Okay.
But the emotion is the magnetic field that draws the event back to you.
The emotion is the magnetic field.
If you try to imagine a beautiful, abundant future, but you are physically feeling the emotion of life,
Right, feeling desperate.
your thought hits a brick wall. The body is effectively saying to the brain, I see the beautiful picture of wealth you were showing me, but I feel the suffocating chemistry of poverty.
And the body wins.
And I only believe the chemistry. The body only responds when the clear, directed thought is paired with an elevated emotion.
That is a profound distinction. The thought provides the direction, but the emotion provides the fuel.
Exactly. You cannot hold the vision of a new future while maintaining the emotional signature of your past.
They just cancel each other out.
They operate on two entirely different frequencies.
But this is where the paradox lies.
How so?
How am I supposed to feel the emotion of a future that hasn't happened yet?
That's the challenge.
You are essentially saying that I must feel the gratitude, the joy, or the profound awe of the future event before the physical evidence of it actually appears in my external world.
Yes. That flips cause and effect completely upside down.
It really does. We are entirely conditioned to wait for the external world to change our internal state.
We wait for the outside to change the inside.
I am waiting for the wealth to finally feel abundant. I am waiting for the perfect relationship so I can finally feel love. I am waiting for the healing to finally feel whole.
And that reverses the entire paradigm of how we interact with reality.
So what's the new paradigm?
Our natural conditioning tells us that reality happens to us and we react to it. But to become the architect of your existence, you must generate the emotional state internally, independent of your external environment.
Independent of it.
Let's look at the emotion of gratitude, for example. Gratitude is the ultimate state of receiving.
Right, because we generally only feel gratitude after we receive a gift.
Correct. So when you deliberately cultivate the intense feeling of gratitude ahead of the actual event, your body, which, remember, cannot distinguish between the external event and the internal feeling.
Right, we established that.
It accepts that the future reality is already here.
It believes the event has already happened.
The chemical cascade begins, the neural thickets start to grow. If you are waiting for the external environment to change so that you can finally feel relief, you are living as a victim of your reality.
But when you teach your body emotionally what the future feels like ahead of the actual experience,
You become the creator.
just imagine the profound shift of waking up in the morning, not with that heavy, familiar catalog of yesterday's problems,
Right, breaking that loop.
but waking up and feeling an overwhelming sense of invincibility and awe for absolutely no external reason.
Just purely generated from within.
You haven't checked your phone, you haven't looked at your bank account, but you just wake up and feel a magnificent rush of gratitude.
That changes everything.
Based on what we are discussing, that emotional signature would completely scramble the old neural networks.
It's a system override.
It is like a biological earthquake that collapses the old architecture of stress and instantly begins laying the track for a totally new reality.
And if we look deeper into human anatomy, we have to examine exactly how this elevated emotion physically moves through the body to create that biological earthquake.
Right, the actual physical journey of the energy.
Because to project this newly imagined future into reality, the mind needs an amplifier.
An amplifier.
The mind can direct the focused intent, it can vividly paint the picture of the future, but the heart provides the immense magnetic power to pull that reality toward you.
The heart. This is a crucial pivot in our conversation.
Very crucial.
Because the heart is almost exclusively talked about in poetic, romantic terms. We talk about broken hearts or following our heart.
Right, soft concepts.
But the research we are looking at treats the heart as a literal mechanical conductor of creation.
A biological machine.
A biological machine that dictates our entire energetic field.
It is far more than a simple pump for blood.
What happens when we use it differently?
When you successfully trade the primitive survival emotions, the anger, the fierce competition, the fear, for elevated emotions like unconditional love, boundless gratitude, and deep compassion, you cause a massive measurable shift in your internal energy.
Where does that energy go?
The energy that was trapped in the lower survival-driven centers of the body, the energy used for fleeing predators or fighting off threats.
Right, the hindbrain and the extremities.
It moves upward, it travels directly into the heart center.
And when that vital energy reaches the heart, what mechanically happens? It doesn't just sit there.
No, it initiates a state we call coherence.
Coherence.
Normally, when we are stressed, our heart rate variability is erratic, jagged, and chaotic.
Like a broken rhythm.
But when we sustain an elevated emotion, the heart begins to beat in a highly orderly, majestic, rhythmic pattern.
A majestic pattern.
It acts like a massive biological drum inside the chest, and it begins sending a powerful rhythmic wave of energy directly up into the brain.
And what does that wave do when it hits the brain? Because earlier we established that the brain is constantly scanning for threats and obsessing over the past.
The effect of that coherent drumbeat on the brain is profound. That rhythmic wave travels up the nervous system and physically suppresses what neuroscientists call the default mode network.
The default mode network. I really want to break down the default mode network.
Let's do it.
Because I've heard it described simply as, the annoying roommate living in our heads.
Yeah, that's a common analogy.
But it is much more deeply rooted than that, isn't it? It is essentially the voice of constant doubt.
The endless analytical chatter.
Right, the inner critic that references your past failures to tell you why your future dreams are impossible.
It's a survival mechanism gone wrong.
Biologically, what is this network doing?
Describing it as an annoying roommate is a relatable shorthand. But biologically, the default mode network is a massive web of interacting brain regions that is highly active when we are not focused on the outside world.
So when we're just sitting there thinking...
It is the seat of the autobiographical self. It is where your ego lives.
The ego.
It constantly weaves together your past experiences to anticipate future problems. It is the analytical, calculating mind that tries to force outcomes based entirely on what it already knows.
So it is the exact mechanism that keeps us trapped in the familiar past.
Precisely. It won't let you step into the unknown.
Because the unknown is dangerous.
To the ego, yes. But when the heart's coherent wave hits the brain, it essentially overrides and quiets that network.
It turns down the volume.
It lowers the volume on the analytical mind. The constant chatter fades. And as the default mode network powers down, vast new creative centers in the brain open up.
Because the energy has to go somewhere.
Right. You stop aggressively analyzing the past, and you start observing pure possibility. You enter a state of profound clarity.
That mental clarity sounds incredible, but the biological cascade that follows this heart coherence is what truly staggered me when I was reviewing the material.
The chemistry.
It is nothing short of miraculous.
It really is.
When you sustain this coherent state, your body begins to release a massive flood of highly beneficial chemicals.
Specifically oxytocin and nitric oxide.
Walk us through exactly what these chemicals do inside the body, because this isn't just a warm, fuzzy, emotional feeling.
Oh, not at all.
This is physical alteration.
The physical alteration is immense. When oxytocin and nitric oxide flood the system, they act as powerful vasodilators.
Vasodilators, meaning they open things up.
They literally cause the arteries within your heart and lungs to physically swell and expand with vital energy.
Expand.
The blood vessels open up, allowing a massive surge of blood flow and oxygen.
You can actually feel this physically, can't you?
Oh, absolutely. It is that sensation of your chest literally swelling with love or gratitude. Your heart center becomes physically engorged with life force.
And because the heart is essentially an electromagnetic organ,
Right.
what happens to our energetic field when it expands like that?
As a result of that physical and electrical expansion, a vast surrounding aura of magnetic energy is produced.
An aura.
The heart's electromagnetic field is vastly stronger than the brain's. When it operates in coherence, you generate a literal, measurable field of energy that radiates outward from your physical body.
So you become a broadcaster.
In this state, the entire paradigm of how you operate in the world shifts. You are no longer forcing outcomes.
You are no longer matter trying to move matter.
Exactly. Matter trying to move matter, meaning the exhausting physical effort of trying to force your reality to change through sheer willpower and physical labor alone.
Yeah, just grinding it out.
When you're operating solely as a physical body trapped in stress, trying to change your life takes incredible effort, vast amounts of time, and relentless struggle.
It's exhausting.
But when you generate this coherent magnetic field, you become a living magnet.
A magnet.
You begin to effortlessly draw experiences, synchronicities, and healing toward you, rather than endlessly chasing them down.
Let's pause and really explore the healing aspect.
Yes, the immune response.
Specifically, the immunological impact of this coherence, because we often hear that stress makes you sick.
Everyone knows that.
But this material suggests that opening the heart isn't just a defensive measure.
Yeah.
It is actively building an impenetrable biological fortress.
It is the ultimate internal medicine.
How does it work?
It centers around a highly crucial, yet often overlooked organ nestled right there in the heart center, the thymus gland.
The thymus gland. What exactly is the role of the thymus gland?
In many ways, it's considered the dormant youth center of the body.
The youth center.
It plays a critical role in the immune system. However, when you are living in a constant state of survival and stress, the body redirects all energy away from the immune system to deal with the perceived external threat.
Right, back to the tiger analogy.
As a result, the thymus gland is starved of energy and it physically shrinks. It goes dormant.
Because, again, the body doesn't care about long-term immunity if it thinks a tiger is about to eat it right now.
Exactly. But when you create this coherent, elevated state in the heart, the dynamic reverses entirely.
The energy comes back.
The thymus gland is suddenly flooded with new blood flow, oxygen, and vital energy. It awakens from its dormancy.
And the response time is staggering. We are not talking about years of meditation to see an effect.
No, not at all.
The material indicates that within a mere fragment of time, a brief passage of days of deliberately practicing the sustained heart coherence,
Just a few days.
the body experiences a profound surge in its natural defenses. What is the thymus actually producing in that time?
The thymus gland rapidly begins producing specialized cells known as T cells.
T cells. The frontline soldiers.
Exactly. These are the frontline soldiers of your immune system. But these are not just ordinary T cells.
What's different about them?
Because they are being produced in an environment of elevated emotion and coherence, they are armed with new receptors.
New receptors.
They generate absolute shields to block invading viruses, bacteria, and foreign agents. Your body becomes incredibly robust against external pathogens.
But I want to push further because the claims go far beyond just fighting off a seasonal cold or a virus.
Oh, we go all the way down to the DNA.
We are talking about touching the very blueprint of our biology, the epigenetic level.
Yes.
How exactly does an elevated emotion alter our genetic destiny? Because, to a layperson, DNA seems like a locked vault.
It does seem that way.
You get what you get from your parents, and that's it.
That is the old Newtonian model of genetics,
Mhm.
which believed that genes were static, unchangeable commands.
Right.
But the field of epigenetics has completely shattered that model. Genes are not hardwired commands.
What are they?
They are a vast library of possibilities. They are blueprints waiting for a contractor to tell them what to build.
I love that. A blueprint waiting for a contractor. So who is the contractor?
The contractor is the environment.
And what constitutes the environment for a cell?
The environment outside the cell is the chemical cascade we discussed earlier.
Peptides.
And what creates the chemical cascade? Your emotions. The end product of an experience is an emotion.
Right.
So when you deliberately bathe your cells in the chemistry of gratitude, love, and awe, you are sending a radically new environmental signal through the cell membrane, directly into the nucleus where the DNA resides.
So the DNA receives the signal of gratitude, and it responds by reading a different part of the blueprint.
Exactly. The genetic expression shifts.
That's incredible.
When this occurs, genes that suppress tumors are suddenly upregulated, meaning the signal turns them on, amplifies them, and instructs them to aggressively patrol for malignant cells.
It turns on the body's natural defense against tumors.
Simultaneously, genes that stimulate stem cells to go out and repair damaged tissues are activated.
Stem cells are mobilized.
Your body begins producing the exact proteins needed for regeneration. You are not waiting for a drug to do this.
You are completely rewriting your biological script simply by changing your internal emotional state.
That is the power of epigenetics.
Okay. The biological mechanisms are profound.
They really are.
The idea that joy and gratitude are literally the master keys to cellular regeneration and genetic expression changes everything.
It changes the entire paradigm of health.
But this brings us to a massive practical hurdle.
Yes. The execution.
The million-dollar question. If the healing, the manifestation, and the incredible expansion of our lives exists solely in this elevated, coherent state,
How do we get there?
how do we actually reach it? Because I am still a person with a mortgage, a demanding boss, a noisy neighborhood, and a backache.
You're still living in the material world.
Exactly. How do we untether ourselves from the heavy, stressful, demanding reality we inhabit every day to reach that state of coherence?
This is where we must enter the realm of the unknown.
The unknown.
It requires a fundamental, deliberate detachment from everything that makes up your known reality.
Which sounds terrifying.
It is at first. The secret to achieving this state, the threshold you must cross, is to completely take your attention off your physical body.
Okay.
To take your attention off your immediate physical environment, and to take your attention off of time itself.
Take my attention off my body, my environment, and time.
Yes.
That sounds simple in theory, but impossibly difficult in practice.
It takes immense focus.
You are essentially saying I have to go from being a specific somebody living in a specific place, worrying about a specific timeline,
To becoming nobody, nowhere in no time.
nobody, nowhere, in no time.
That is precisely the threshold. To enter this state, you must forget your name.
Forget my name.
You must forget your past trauma. You must forget the problems waiting for you at work tomorrow.
Just drop it all.
You must forget your cell phone, your schedule, your gender, your age, your pain. You must systematically strip away every single identifier that ties your consciousness to the material world.
What happens when you do that successfully?
When you do this successfully, you stop obsessing over the past or anticipating the future, and you allow yourself to fall entirely into what we call the generous present moment.
The generous present moment. I want to talk about the sensory experience of trying to do this.
It's quite an experience.
Because it is not always a peaceful transition.
Rarely is it peaceful the first time.
When I first started experimenting with taking my attention off my body and my environment, I didn't feel serene.
What did you feel?
I felt a rising panic.
Yes.
The best way I can describe it is the sensation of being on a treadmill that is running at full speed.
Okay.
You are sprinting, sweating, just trying to keep up with life.
Right.
Suddenly, someone turns out all the lights.
Pitch black.
You are sprinting in pitch darkness, and the only way to find peace is to intentionally step off the moving belt.
Which goes against every instinct.
It feels terrifying at first because we are so incredibly addicted to the momentum of our daily stress.
We think we'll die if we stop running.
We think if we step off, we are going to fall on our faces into an abyss.
That is a very accurate description of the internal friction.
That friction is real.
That terror you feel initially is the ego, the analytical mind, the default mode network panicking as it loses its grip on the familiar material world.
It's throwing a tantrum.
It is screaming, pay attention to the danger, pay attention to the schedule. But when you bravely step off that moving belt and stand still in the dark, what do you realize?
You realize the ground beneath you is absolutely solid.
Yes.
It is infinite. You aren't falling. You are finally standing still.
And when you successfully achieve that stillness, when you disconnect from the physical realm, you witness a profound, measurable shift in your biology.
In the brainwaves, right.
Your brainwaves begin to fundamentally alter their rhythm.
How so?
Most of our waking lives are spent in a high-alert beta brainwave state. Beta is the state of stress, of constant scanning for danger, of hyper-focusing on the external world.
It's that jagged, erratic feeling.
It is a chaotic, jagged electrical storm in the brain. But as you become nobody, nowhere, in no time, those brainwaves slow down.
They smooth out.
They transition into smooth, rhythmic, highly organized patterns, moving into alpha, and eventually deep theta states.
You literally cross the threshold from the material world into pure consciousness.
Yes, and this is the crux of the entire philosophy.
Pure consciousness.
In this deep, coherent state, you are no longer trying to force matter to change.
Right, the Newtonian way.
That old way of operating requires vast amounts of time, exhausting physical effort, and massive energy consumption.
But what about the new way?
But in this generous present moment, as pure consciousness, you exist strictly in the realm of energy and frequency.
And what happens to the rules of physical reality when you operate from the realm of energy?
The restrictive rules of physical reality are suspended.
Suspended entirely.
Because you are no longer operating at the dense level of physical matter, profound, instantaneous reorganization of the physical body can occur.
What?
You are interacting with the energetic blueprint itself.
It makes me think of trying to fix a malfunctioning software program.
How so?
If you operate from the level of matter, it is like trying to fix a software bug by smashing your computer monitor with a hammer.
Or taking apart the keyboard piece by piece.
Exactly. It takes forever, and it usually breaks things further.
Right.
But when you enter that void state, it is like accessing the command line of reality.
The source code.
You simply type in a new code, hit enter, and the entire system instantly reconfigures itself to run the new software.
That is the perfect way to understand the quantum mechanics of healing. You are rewriting the underlying code.
That's beautiful.
But this naturally leads us to the final and perhaps most difficult challenge of this entire process.
There's always a catch.
Well, achieving this state of bliss, coherence, and regeneration while sitting in a quiet, dark room is one thing.
Right, because you control the environment.
You can control that environment, but how do we maintain this elevated frequency when life inevitably throws us a massive curveball?
Because it will.
Because we all react. We are biologically wired to react. We are human.
And that is the true initiation, isn't it?
It is. The goal of this exploration is not to adopt a delusion that life will suddenly become perfectly smooth and free of challenges.
No, the external world will continue to happen.
Someone will inevitably cut you off in traffic.
A colleague will betray your trust.
A sudden financial crisis will hit. An unexpected diagnosis will arrive.
Life doesn't stop.
We possess a nervous system designed to react to sudden environmental changes that will not disappear.
So what's the goal then?
The true measure of human evolution, the true sign of mastery, is not whether you react, but the duration of your reaction.
The duration of your reaction. This brings us to a concept I find incredibly useful for daily life, the refractory period.
Yes.
Can you define what that is?
The refractory period is simply the amount of time it takes for you to recover from an emotional trigger and return to a baseline state of equilibrium.
So how long you stay mad?
Exactly. And shortening that refractory period is perhaps the most vital, practical skill a human being can develop for their biological health and their future reality.
Let's track the life cycle of an unmanaged emotional reaction.
Let's do.
Because this shows how quickly things spiral. Let's say you have a severe angry reaction to an event at work.
Okay.
If you let that emotion linger, if you keep thinking about it and firing those exact same angry chemicals for a passage of days, we stop calling it a reaction.
Right, it morphs into a mood.
It morphs into a mood. You wake up 2 days later and say, I'm just in a bad mood right now.
And everyone around you tiptoes because you are broadcasting a hostile frequency?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But let's say you still cannot regulate that emotion.
You keep feeding it with your attention.
If that mood lingers for a passage of months, it solidifies further.
It becomes a temperament?
It becomes a temperament. People start describing you as a generally grumpy, pessimistic, or anxious person.
And if you allow that emotional state to persist unmanaged for a span of years, it calcifies entirely.
What does it become?
It becomes a permanent personality trait.
Wow.
You literally define your entire identity by the pain of an event that happened decades ago. You become the living, breathing embodiment of that past trauma.
Which is precisely why the ultimate goal of this work is to catch the reaction in the moment it happens.
You have to catch it.
To develop a state of self-awareness so intense, so refined, that the moment you feel your energy drop.
The moment you feel the familiar acidic burn of frustration.
Or the icy, paralyzing grip of fear.
You do not let it run wild.
You step away from the trigger, you pause, you self-regulate.
You willfully shift the body back out of that primitive, survival-driven state.
You reignite the coherent drumbeat of the heart.
And you realign your biology with the frequency of your chosen future.
You systematically shorten the refractory period from years to days to hours and eventually to mere moments.
That level of emotional mastery is the key.
It sounds like a superpower. And when you master this, when you can sustain the elevated emotion of your future regardless of the chaos in your present environment.
The results are astounding.
They are almost incomprehensible to the conventional analytical mind. We are talking about profound, documented instances of spontaneous regeneration that defy standard medical prognosis.
The clinical observations of individuals who have mastered this process are truly staggering.
Let's talk about a few of those examples to really cement the practical application of everything we've discussed.
We should.
There are recorded cases of individuals experiencing profound physical healing that border on the miraculous.
Perfect.
For example, there was an individual who experienced total vision loss in a specific quadrant of their eyes due to severe progressive nerve damage.
Right.
The medical consensus was absolute nerve tissue does not regenerate in that manner. The blindness was irreversible.
Under the old Newtonian model of biology, that prognosis is correct.
But this individual engaged deeply in the exact process we are discussing today.
They didn't accept the static script.
No, they surrendered fully to the unknown void. They entered that state of becoming nobody, nowhere, in no time.
And while in that deep, coherent state, they sustained an elevated emotion of wholeness and gratitude.
And the details of the outcome show that during this deep meditative process, they felt a literal physical sensation in their brain.
A physical sensation.
A crackling heat, a sensation of intense electrical rewiring. And when they opened their eyes, their visual field was completely, flawlessly restored.
And we must emphasize that this is not an isolated anomaly or a trick of the light.
No, there are more.
We see identical principles at play in individuals facing catastrophic structural damage.
Like what?
Consider the cases of individuals with crushed spinal columns who were told unequivocally that they would never walk again, that the physical hardware was permanently destroyed.
I really have to push back on this one purely from a skeptical physiological standpoint.
I understand that.
I understand nerves regenerating, perhaps, but rebuilding a crushed spine, bone and structural cartilage.
It seems impossible.
How is a thought, even an emotional charged thought, physically reconstructing shattered vertebrae?
It challenges everything we think we know about matter. But you must remember the mechanism we discussed earlier, the genetic blueprint.
The blueprint waiting for a contractor.
These individuals refuse to accept the static reality of a wheelchair. Instead, they spent hours every single day reconstructing their vertebrae using vivid, dimensionally precise mental imagery.
So they were doing intense mental rehearsal.
They didn't just casually wish to walk. They visualized the exact biological reconstruction of each bone, each nerve pathway.
They were designing the blueprint.
And crucially, they paired that intense, clear visualization with the sustained emotional state of wholeness, of immense gratitude for a healed body.
So they were continuously signaling the stem cells.
Exactly. They were holding the energetic blueprint of a healed spine so steadily and broadcasting the emotional chemistry so powerfully that the body had no choice but to conform to the new environmental signal.
It had to match the frequency.
They upregulated the exact genes necessary to rebuild physical tissue through the sheer force of conscious intent. And they walks again, against all known medical odds.
When you hear stories of that magnitude, it forces you to question the very fabric of what we consider possible.
It completely shatters the artificial limitations we place on the human body and the human experience.
It really does. And this observation leads us to a speculative yet incredibly important philosophical and biological insight.
Which is?
When an individual heals themselves in this profound, spontaneous manner, whether it is restoring vision, rebuilding a spine, or reversing a chronic illness, they haven't just cured a disease in the traditional allopathic sense.
No, they haven't.
What do you mean by that? If the disease is gone, isn't that a cure?
It is a cure, but the mechanism is far deeper than removing a pathogen. The disease, the physical degradation, the blindness, it all existed entirely within the biological architecture of the old personality.
The old identity.
As somebody who lived in constant stress, who harbored unresolved trauma, who existed in the state of chemical survival. Right. By altering their thoughts, their emotions, and their energetic frequency so completely and consistently, they have literally become a biologically different person.
A new person entirely.
The new identity they have assumed, the new energetic signature they broadcast, simply does not possess the genetic signaling for that disease.
The disease cannot exist in the new environment.
They haven't just healed their old body, they have stepped into a completely new physical reality.
That is the ultimate realization. The physical transformation is just a byproduct of the identity transformation.
Exactly.
Let's take a moment to look at the sheer scale of the journey we've taken today.
We've covered a lot of ground.
We started with that heavy, universally familiar feeling of waking up physically tethered to the past, trapped in a relentless chemical loop of survival, stress, and rehearsed pain.
And we explored exactly how those primitive survival emotions draw our vital life force away from healing and chain us to yesterday's trauma.
But then we mapped the biological escape route.
The way out.
We discussed the remarkable plasticity of the brain and how mental rehearsal, when paired with the powerful magnetic emotion of gratitude, can literally lay down the physical hardware of a completely new future before it ever happens.
We revealed the heart not as a metaphor, but as the ultimate biological conductor of this process.
When we shift our internal state from survival to love, the heart beats in a majestic coherence.
That rhythm travels up and quiets the analytical, doubting mind of the default mode network.
It releases a cascade of healing chemistry that physically swells the heart center, generating a powerful magnetic field.
We saw exactly how this state awakens the dormant immune system.
How it signals the DNA to upregulate healthy, repairing genes, and how it physically shields the body from the inside out.
And we learned that to access this incredible power, we must brave the dark room.
We must bravely step off the running treadmill of our identity and become nobody, nowhere, in no time, entering the pure, generous present moment of endless possibility.
Finally, we recognize that the ultimate mastery of this process lies in shortening the refractory period.
Catching our inevitable reactions to the daily chaos of life and willfully, deliberately pulling our energy back into alignment with our chosen future.
The magnitude of this knowledge requires a fundamental, radical shift in how we approach our daily existence.
It really does. Human potential is not a static script.
No, it's not.
It is not permanently written by our inherited genetics, nor is it forever cemented by our accumulated past traumas.
We are not dense, unchangeable blocks of matter doomed to repeat the past.
We are fluid, highly dynamic fields of energy.
By becoming intensely, fiercely conscious of our unconscious habits.
And by bravely stepping out of the familiar, comfortable pain into the boundless, terrifying, unknown.
We hold the biological key to our own evolution.
We are not the passive victims of our reality. We are its absolute, undeniable creators.
That is the ultimate truth of our biology.
This has been a massive paradigm shift.
It's been an incredible exploration.
And as we bring this analysis to a close, I want to leave you with the final provocative thought.
Something for everyone to take with them.
Something to deeply mull over as you step back out into the momentum of your life, as you face your commute, your relationships, and your daily challenges.
Consider this.
If your physical body is essentially a living, breathing, biological magnet, an instrument that is entirely reliant on the emotions you are silently, consistently practicing in the quiet moments of your mind.
The frequency you choose to hold.
What exact frequency are you broadcasting into the void right now? And what universe is it silently, inevitably pulling toward you?